Let me say that, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. These slides are sort of a mixed bag. There are buildings that are included about which we have very little or no information. There are buildings about which we have a great deal of information that are not included in the slides. As John said, the two of us, two essentially 19th century fellows with all of the technology a 19th century fellow had, I went out on at least 3 occasions, and there are still some of these places that I don't have yet. I do, fortunately, have most of them. If anything is said that is inaccurate and you know that it's wrong, I hope you'll correct me, because at some point these will be put together, I think, in a more finished form. At the end of the program, I have a set of the driving tours. I think there are enough for each of you if you would like to have one. As John said, this was done in connection with the Bicentennial Project, and Nikki Hughes approached me at one point and said, wouldn't it be great if we could have a driving tour of the historic spots in Franklin County? And I consulted with Bob Paulsgrove and others and was told, well, there's really only one area where you could create a kind of chain of places that still exist and that would not warrant a tour, but would create a kind of visible whole. So we decided to move from Glen Willis as a natural starting point, since Glen Willis, of course, is on the site of Leestown, which, as you know, existed before Frankfort existed. We moved east on 421, following the paths of the Buffalo, to the junction of US 60 and 460, and proceeded then to Forks of Elkhorn, then to Wood Lake, then to the county line, back from the county line on 460 to the Schweitzer Road, to Schweitzer, Forks of Elkhorn, Peaks Mill, and then back in on Peaks Mill Road, finally ending up at Cove Spring at the bottom of US 127. The sites that were chosen either for their historical or their architectural importance. Most of the sites are clearly visible from the road. Some, however, are not. The most interesting tour that I can think of would be one that consisted of the buildings that stood 100, 25, or even as recently as 10 years ago. One of the things we discovered in looking at the survey of historic places that was done, I think, about 15, maybe 20 years ago, is that many of the places about which there's information simply no longer exist. And we're losing a lot of this county's heritage, architectural and historical heritage, with each of these structures that passes. Let's begin, Larry, if we could, with Glen Willis. Everyone here, I'm sure, is familiar with this building. It is a brick residence. It was built in 1815. The original structure was 1.5 stories, and it was built on an acre of land given by Captain Hancock Lee, who is regarded as the founder of Leestown, given to his nephew Willis Lee, who built the house. Originally, it was built as a river house, whose main porch with white pillars rising to its top faced the Kentucky River. Let's take a look at this second shot here. Uh-oh.
We'll try it.
I hope. And it shows you the orientation of the house toward the river, because, of course, Frankfort itself derived from the river. It was a natural, there was a natural ford. There were buffalo traces which created really the network of roads that formed early Leestown and later Frankfort. There are in the house a number of finely carved mantels and some exceptional woodwork. The house was property changed hands, and Humphrey Marshall bought the house, and it changed hands again after 1840 when Henry Murray purchased the house and added 2 other floors to it. We see this house because of the efforts of an organization, really individuals who came together when this house was about to be razed and bought it for the Franklin County Trust, and thanks to some federal money and a lot of hard work, this building was preserved, and you see it as it is today. Marshall, I mentioned, was a Revolutionary War veteran. He was a Kentucky legislator. He was a U.S. senator and the author of one of the earliest histories of Kentucky. He was a delegate to the Danville Convention to form the state's constitution. He fought General Wilkinson, not physically, in his plan to separate Kentucky from the Union and make her a part of Spain. Several of the houses we're going to look at tonight have some connection with the Spanish conspiracy. Most notably, the Harry Innes house we'll be looking at soon. Marshall also fought a duel with Henry Clay in 1809 over their political differences. He died in 1841, and at that time the property came into the ownership of Henry Harrison Murray. He was a Frankfort merchant and contractor. He remodeled the house to the proportions you see here. Let's go to the next house. For my money, this is probably the most elegant house I know of in Franklin County. That's a personal view. It was built in the early 19th century. It's located, as you know, at Leestown, at what was Leestown. It's one of several surviving structures at Leestown. You will notice as you look very closely at it that it is asymmetrical. It was built in 1818. It was asymmetrical because, as I understand it, and the owner is here tonight and she may correct me on this, but I understand that it was incorporated or built around an existing building. And this gable creates it's a kind of Greek revival motif in that it forms a pediment, and I think that gives it a lot of its just pristine appeal. Harrison Blanton, whose dates are 1791 to 1879, bought this property. He named it the Beeches, and when he built the house, he transformed a section of an earlier house into a wing of the house. The family came to central Kentucky from Frederick County, Virginia in 1799. It owned a building supply business, and it is thought that masons and craftsmen in the employ of Mr. Blanton were responsible for the construction of the house. It has been in continuous possession of the Blanton family since it was built. It was named, correct me if I'm wrong, for European beeches, which unfortunately died as a result of a blight. Pardon me?
American beeches.
Okay, American beeches. And when those trees died, I think were they replaced with beeches or with?
European beeches.
Okay. It ranks as one of the finest federal residences in Franklin County, certainly in central Kentucky. Next slide, please. There's another shot of the Beeches showing the intact stone fence, which I presume is as old, very likely, as the house itself.
It was moved. It ran along the road. They changed the road. So the original stones, but different things.
I see. Larry, let's go to the next one. This third structure is very seldom seen. It is on the ancient age property, and it may be it's certainly one of, if not the oldest surviving structure that we know, that's documented at any rate, in Franklin County. It was built by Commodore Richard Taylor, who was from Orange County, Virginia. Isaac Shelby, our first governor, appointed him, I think, Director of Navigation of the river. At that early time, it was recognized that much of Frankfort's future depended upon the ability of boats to navigate the stream, and part of his job was to keep the channel cleared to the extent that he could. This house, as you'll notice, has a stone first story, and the frame structure was super added at a later date. I'm told there are some plans to renovate this house, but it is probably the oldest and one of the most seldom seen early houses in Franklin County. Next, please. This is simply the doorway on the front side of the house, the slide of which did not turn out very well. Go ahead, Larry. This is a shot of the, no, I think it's another shot of the rear of the house. Let's go on to the next. One house that we do not have a slide of is the Black House, which is in what is now Silver Lake subdivision. This home was located several hundred yards off of 460 at what was called Moxley's Pond, now called Silver Lake. A.W. Macklin bought this house about 1835. We're not really sure when it was, not this house. Please don't look at that. But the Black House was built, we don't know when, but it was purchased by A.W. Macklin in 1835. Interestingly, the property itself was the site of one of the state's early racetracks. Beginning about 1810, horse races were run on the property for nearly 50 years, terminating with the Civil War. There were grandstands erected, and it's easy to visualize the number of people who came to witness horse races just as they do today. The Black House was used as a tavern, and the owners of horses and others resorted there, I guess, either to celebrate or to weep. It is also, the farm itself is also the site of Frankfort's first airport. Some of you probably know that much better than I, but planes apparently small planes came in and out of that property. Now, the house we're looking at here is the Benoni Macklin House. It's located a half-mile west of the Forks of Elkhorn and just east of Silver Lake subdivision. This house was built for the oldest son of Alex K. Macklin, who was co-owner of a large flouring mill at the Forks. And it was considered at the time, the flouring mill, to be the finest in the state. This house was constructed in the mid-1850s and not finished until the time of the Civil War. At Macklin's death, the property went to his daughter, Mrs. Elizabeth Macklin Hind, whose husband owned the Hind, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Hind Distillery across the road. It was later sold to George Fowler, who was the president of the Frankfort-Cincinnati Railroad. As you look at this house, there is a certain degree of deception because the 1974 tornado removed the second story, or it was demolished to the extent that the owners simply converted it to a one-story structure. Next, please, Larry. That's another shot of the Benoni Macklin house. And next, please. This is a house there is not much record of in the files at the Heritage Commission. It's called the C. Warren House. It is to the off of 460, right in the middle of Forks of Elkhorn, not the creek, but the town. And you can see that it is quite old. It has log elements in it, and it has been weatherboarded. It was built sometime before 1840. Next, please. We're looking here at the Buck Run Baptist Church. As you know, it's located at the Forks of Elkhorn, where the north and south forks of the Elkhorn meet. I want to say a few words about the early settlement of the Forks of Elkhorn. Settlement of Forks of Elkhorn antedates statehood. As I said, it was a village where the north and south forks of Elkhorn meet. Paul Sawyer, interestingly, painted many of his watercolors in the area, being quick to recognize its scenic beauty. With few commercial establishments in it, it has been called a community of homeowners. Alex Macklin is historically its chief citizen. He lived from 1799 to 1863. He was a tycoon of his era. He farmed thousands of acres. He packed pork. He manufactured hemp. He was a banker and a commission merchant. He operated the biggest rope walk in the state, and he harnessed the water of Elkhorn Creek to run 3 mills, not one, but 3 mills in tandem. One to grind corn, one to saw lumber, one to weave woolens. The church was organized in January of 1818. Originally, the church met on the farm of a brother Wilson, Isaac Wilson, whose property we'll see soon. In 1856, the issue of slavery divided the congregation. The American Party remained, and the Know Nothing Party, which was pro-slavery, under the direction of Reverend Cadwalder Lewis, whose house we'll also see, formed the Providence Church. The presence of 2 Baptist churches in the Woodlake area is said at times to have caused considerable confusion. During Reconstruction, the church fell on hard times and in 1871 dropped out of the Franklin Baptist Association. By 1888, the congregation again organized with 80 to 90 members. I mention this because the church had to be moved. The original church, this is not the original church that we're looking at here. It is the bricks from the original church that was constructed on the Wilson farm and moved in 1888, brick by brick, to the site on which it stands now. It is built in the Victorian Gothic style, and as you know, it served its congregation until recently when a new church was constructed just across the road. Next, please. There are a couple of more shots of the church here. Go ahead, Larry. There are 2 more, I think. Close-up of the window, and this next slide is of the small pastor's study connected to the church and within close proximity to Elkhorn Creek. Next, please. It's difficult to get a good shot of Macklin Dam, John and I learned. And yet, it's one of the most interesting architectural accomplishments in the county. The first dam on this site was built by Bennett Pemberton in the early 19th century and washed away. In 1843, Alexander Macklin built a second dam. It too apparently was destroyed, most likely by the creek. The present dam has been in this site since 1863. It was built by slaves, designed by Macklin. It is 15 feet high and 300 feet long. And it had a number of original engineering features in it to divert water for use in the mills we mentioned. There are still numerous stone fences in the area. There was an extensive hemp factory on the site, just a stone's throw from the dam, and it burned in 1890 and was never rebuilt. There's another shot of the dam here. And the stone in it was quarried from a site on North Elkhorn, and it was quickly recognized as of superb quality, as was the masonry work that went into the dam. It was long regarded as one of the finest pieces of masonry in Kentucky. Next, please. This next house is another house that is seldom seen because it is at the end of Reading Road off of 460. And it is another gem. It's an early vernacular Greek Revival house built between 1820 and 1830. The brickwork is in Flemish bond. It's a 5-bay house, though it doesn't, and 2 stories. The changes in this house have been minimal since the 1820s. It's one of 3 houses built by the Reverend John Taylor, who was recognized early as a leader in the American Baptist Church. Interestingly, he built this house for his daughter, and it is the surviving house of 3 he built for each of his daughters. Nancy, the daughter for whom he built this house, first married a John D. Gray. John's not here to ask if there's a relation. Her second husband was Colonel Thomas L. Tate. The Tates, interestingly enough, were the parents of Honest Dick Tate. Now, Honest Dick Tate was raised on the farm, and as many of you know, he eventually became our state treasurer. And as it turned out, Honest Dick Tate was less than honest, and he absconded with a good portion of the state treasury to parts unknown. Interestingly, it was directly due to his unethical campaign tactics that the Kentucky Constitution was changed to keep certain officials from succeeding themselves. Next, please. I think there's another shot of this house. This house was painted within the last, I guess the last 10 years or so. This farm used to belong to the Cox family, and it is beautifully situated in a horseshoe curve of Elkhorn Creek. And it is, as you can see, a going farm. Next, please, Larry. This next house is the home of, or was the home of, the Reverend Cadwallader Lewis. It has a name. It's called Bel Air. It is a Greek Revival Italianate country villa. John Lewis and his family settled in Woodlake in 1808. They established a school named Llangollen, and my best information is, Bob, you may know better, that the school was in Lexington. But because of its associations in Lexington, the family was very close to Mary Todd Lincoln, and it is said that Mary Todd Lincoln very often visited this home. The house was constructed about 1852. Lewis was the pastor of the nearby Providence Church until his death in 1882, which resulted from a fall from a horse he was riding on circuit. At the time, he was a professor of theology at nearby Georgetown College. The next owner of the house was Thomas H. Painter, who bought the farm and used the Bel Air name. He was a U.S. representative to Congress, a U.S. senator, and the Kentucky Chief Justice. Next, please. There's another shot of this house that gives you an idea of its depth. Okay, next, Larry. This next house is the Steele Lewis House. It's located on a rise where US 460 and Highway 1685 meet. It's located on a hill, as you can see, and it's notable for several reasons. One, its surviving outbuildings, one of which was said to have been slave quarters. The smaller building, I believe, was a smokehouse. It is a Gothic Revival residence, and it is said to be the one remaining antebellum Gothic residence in Franklin County. That is, it was originally constructed in that design. The architect was Nathaniel Cook, who also designed the Owen County Courthouse, the State Arsenal, and the Good Shepherd Church. The residence is U-shaped, 1.5 stories high, with 2 central chimneys. Captain Thomas Steele was the son of Captain John Steele of Woodford County, who was a veteran of the War of 1812. Steele had the main house and its dependencies built just before the Civil War. Because of his Southern sympathies, he felt compelled to leave the state and relocated his family in Windsor, Canada, never returning to this house. Next, please.
How do you spell that, Steele?
S-T-E-E-L-E. Maybe some relation to the steel of Steel Street here. I don't know. This is another shot of the house. Next, please, Larry. This is the John C. Fraser House. It's set on a rise overlooking Georgetown Road, just up the road from the house we just saw. It is a 2-story frame with what is called a T plan. It was built about 1875 in the Victorian Italianate style. This farm originally belonged to John Wilson, who was the son of Captain Isaac Wilson, who was a noted early settler in Franklin County. Fraser purchased this property in 1860 and soon after built this house, of which we have, I think, 3 slides. There are 2 more, Larry. And 1 more, I think. The next house is, again, a house with a name. It's designated as the B.F. Wilson House, the Benjamin Franklin Wilson House, but its name is Devon Downs. It is late Greek Revival. It was built about between 1848 and 1854, and it is just on the Franklin County, Scott County line. This was built on one of the early tracts of land belonging to Reverend John Taylor. It's 6-bay, 2-story brick with pilastered walls and a 2-story porch. It's unfortunate, but this house, I'd been in this house once, and at that time, this double-story front porch was one of its notable architectural features, and it looked much different than the porch that is on there now. And it was made a lot heftier, and something in the elevation of the house, the beauty of the house, those of you who know it, in my view, was lost when that original porch was not replicated. There's another shot or 2 of it here. Wilson was one of the largest slaveholders in the state. He had 200 slaves. His farm consisted of several thousand acres, occupying much of the Elkhorn Valley. He himself had grown up in a nearby cabin, and the bricks in the house were constructed on the farm, just as the lumber with which it was constructed was cut from existing stands of timber. Next, please. When you reach this house, you come back toward the Schweitzer Road, back toward Frankfort, and turn, I believe the number is 1262. This is not a very good photograph, but this is the J.J. Jones log house. It's located on Jones Lane, appropriately enough, about 2.5 miles southeast of Schweitzer. It's a 1.5-story log rectangular house. It has 3 bays with dry-laid stone chimneys on either end. I think we've got a better shot of it in the next slide. As you can see, it is not in very good condition. Let's go on, Larry. The next slide is, this is a house on the Lewis Cox farm. I don't know the name of it. Again, it's a house I've been in. I know it is a log structure, quite early, and appears to be in pretty good shape. Let's go. This is one of the most interesting structures in Franklin County, for my money. It is the sole surviving toll house. It's located on Jones Lane. It is, as you can see, it's rather modest. It was built close to the road. I've got a note here about the owner. It was a 2-story frame building to the east side of the road. It was built about 1870. It is one of the numerous toll houses that existed in Franklin County. The facade of this front gable frame structure has only a single first-story door with a centered window on the first and second stories. This is the last toll house to survive. In 1882, when the Franklin County Atlas was put together, the owner was listed as, or the occupant was an individual named Donovan. His wife was named Maggie. They were the gatekeepers of the toll house. He was a native of County Cork, Ireland. She was a native of Pennsylvania. They had settled in Franklin County in 1853. Next, please. This house, too, as you can see, is not in very good condition, unfortunately. It ought to receive some of the attention that the Schweitzer Covered Bridge has. It's really a unique building in Franklin County. Next, please. This is the Elizabeth Macklin house. The name Macklin keeps coming up in this Woodlake area. It too is not in good shape now. I believe it is unoccupied. It was, we know very little about it. It's a 2-story frame house, of course, and it was owned by Elizabeth Macklin in 1882 at the time the Atlas came out. Next, please. This, of course, is the Schweitzer Covered Bridge. It was built by contractor George Hawkinsmith around 1855, and it's one of 13 covered bridges still standing in Kentucky. It is the only covered span remaining in Franklin County. Another existed, I guess, at the site of the Singing Bridge. Am I right, Mayor? And another existed at what is called Knight's Bridge, where Peaks Mill Road crosses Elkhorn Creek. This bridge spans North Elkhorn, and of course it is just outside, or in the suburbs, we'll say, of Schweitzer, Kentucky. Let's take a look at the next slide. Here you can see the stone abutment. The bridge itself is 60 feet in length, 11 feet in width. Its sides terminate approximately 2 feet from the roof, exposing the interior wooden supports. Next, please. This is a rather typical farmhouse in Franklin County. It's a two-story, it's called Creekwater Farm. It is on the approach, the road, about a mile from Peek's Mill. It has a long porch along the front of the house, and interestingly, in its rear, it has a surviving smokehouse. Please, Larry, would you? Very interesting structure, and who knows how old. Certainly antebellum, perhaps quite early, as that was a very desirable site in the floodplain of Elkhorn Creek. I believe there's another shot which gives us a detail of the work, even though it's upside down. Okay. Unfortunately, most of the shots of Forks of Elkhorn did not turn out, but of Peek's Mill did not turn out. But I want to show you one gem, and maybe this is something of a tease too, to encourage all of you to take advantage of the driving tour and go to see these places. This structure, and it did not come out very well on the slide, again is another of those architectural gems. It is called the Trotter Hawkinsmith House, and it's just beyond the limits of Peek's Mill. It's set on a small rise about 1/2 mile east of Elkhorn Creek. It's a classic 1.5-story, 5-bay, Adams-style Georgian house, and the workmanship in it is said to be really exquisite. The facade of it is built in Flemish bond. It has a very elaborate fan door in the center that's flanked by pilasters supporting the central pediment, which contains an elliptical fan window, which would have been relatively unusual for a house that was built that far from things and that early in the county.
Where again?
It is just beyond, if you're going through Peek's Mill.
Okay.
From Frankfort,
Okay.
before you get to the bridge which crosses onto Sullivan Lane, look to the right, and it sits.
The Rambo, was it?
It is the Rambo. I think it belongs to the Rambo family now, or has belonged to the Rambo family. And I suspect some of you have seen that house. I would love to see it. The only trotter to appear in the 1820 census is a William Trotter, and by 1882, C.G. Hawkinsmith owned this property. Next, please. As we leave Peek's Mill and come back to Peek's Mill Road, one of the noteworthy architectural features is at Elkhorn Creek at Knight's Bridge, and this is the A. Easley House. It's located just east of the bridge on a high bluff above Elkhorn Creek. You can just barely see in the to the right of the house a log cabin which probably predated the Victorian house built on that site. However, the Victorian house itself encloses another log structure. And I'm told this house has been added on to a number of times, as have a good many houses in the area. I don't have a shot of Knight's Bridge, but I want to share with you a little information about it. It was built in 1931. It replaced a steel structure that was just downstream, and this, you can probably, if you've been on Elkhorn Creek or past that bridge, you can see the still existing stone abutments. It was the site of a wooden covered bridge that was built before the Civil War and was a gathering place for sparkers, spooners, we'll call them. And the story is that During the tobacco wars in the early 1900s, a local farmer, perhaps living at the Eastley house, heard that night riders were coming to burn his barn, and he frightened off the riders when he heard the clop of their hooves on the bridge, and fired his shotgun into the air, which apparently dispersed them. Next, please. This next house is another architectural gem. Unfortunately, the shot is just not up to snuff. This is the Henry and Zach Church House. It's located at Churches Grove on Peaks Mill Road. It is a central passage log house built on property originally owned by Robert Church Sr. And dates to an original land grant from 1782. In 1882, it is identified as the residence of Henry and Zach Church, who were descendants of John Church. It is set on a small rise north of Peaks Mill Road and overlooks the main Elkhorn Creek. We're going to come back to this site in a few minutes. Next, please. The next house we're really seeing a modern structure here, but this is built at the site of Innes's Station. It's located on Peaks Mill Road, a quarter-mile east of Stedmantown Lane. The original structure, probably the best place to see the original structure is in Gilson's early Frankfort. A 1.5-story log structure existed on the site. It was known as Innes's Station. Judge Harry Innes was a native of Virginia and the first judge of the U.S. District Court of Kentucky. He built and fortified the house with portholes in the end of the second story for its defense. J. Winston Coleman, the late Kentucky or Lexington historian, writes an account of the last major Indian foray into Franklin County in April of 1792. And this house, as other houses in the neighborhood, was under attack. And it successfully withstood the attack without any loss of life. Unfortunately, the building burned, I believe, in 1961, and this rather handsome structure was built on the site. Interestingly, during this raid, 2 of Harry Innes's slaves who were chopping wood on another part of the farm were captured. And after several years in captivity, one of them, whose name was Peter, escaped and made his way back to the Innes farm. And as a reward for Peter's services and his loyalty, Judge Innes made provision for him to be freed and for his care on the farm. Next, please.
Did the Marstons
That's right.
store that?
That's right. Yeah, I believe this house was built by J.B. Marston. And interestingly, I hope I'm right about this, Bob, but on the overlooking Elkhorn Creek at the rear of this house are 6 or so pillars that were salvaged from the hotel, the Frankfort Hotel across the street, interestingly enough. And if you canoe on Elkhorn Creek, you can look up and hear these magnificent roofless columns that apparently J.B. Marston had moved to that property. Before we look at the next slide, or actually this is a surviving spring house on the property, and it is said to have been the site of a speech which Henry Clay delivered at some point. Other notable persons who visited Harry Innes were Senator John Brown, Governor Isaac Shelby, Governor James Garrett, and Innes lived until 1816. He had a 1,200-acre farm, and if you go to the manuscript collection in the Historical Society, you will see that you will see the plan. I think in his handwriting, of the orchard that existed on his farm. He was quite a horticulturalist. He was also, he knew Thomas Jefferson and was in correspondence with many of the notables of the day. Stedmantown, what used to be Stedmantown, was in close proximity to the Ennis settlement. Stedmantown was a flourishing village on Elkhorn Creek, and it was the site of the second paper mill established in Kentucky. What remains of the village that existed there can be seen from a bluff above Elkhorn Creek on Stedmantown near the present Martin Farm. The founder of this mill was Ebenezer Stedman, who lived from 1808 to 1885. He came to Kentucky from Massachusetts by way of Lexington and Georgetown, Kentucky. The mill was located on the Elkhorn, just north of the site of the Frankfort and Cincinnati Railroad Bridge, which, of course, no longer exists either. Remains of the mill race are on the west side of the creek, across from the remaining buildings that were part of the village. Interestingly, Stedman wrote his memoirs that were printed, I believe, in about 1960 by the University Press of Kentucky, or University of Kentucky Press at that time. And the book is called Bluegrass Craftsman. And if you're interested in the history of that area in particular, it is an indispensable book to read. Next, please. This is the site was the site of a portion of the Ennis settlement. As you look from Stedmantown Lane over the precipice above Elkhorn Creek. And not only is this area scenic, it is very historic. Because in this Indian raid of 1792, there were a number of cabins, more than you see here. The families of Jesse Cook, Lewis Martin, William Dunn, William Bledsoe, and several others in April of 1792 were attacked by a party of 100 or so Indians, said, incidentally, to have been led by Simon Girty. At least one article I've seen, 1931 article, says that that's the case. I'm not entirely certain of that. But interestingly, the Cook brothers were at their farm. They were shearing sheep. And at the time of the attack, the Indians were able to approach them closely enough that both of them were shot, one fatally on the spot, the other managed to reach the cabin where his wife, another woman, and 3 children bolted themselves, barred themselves in the cabin, and they found that they had a rifle to defend themselves, but they didn't have a bullet, a piece of lead that would fit the barrel. And one of the resourceful wives found a piece of lead and actually bit the lead in two to mold a bullet, managed to aim the gun through a chink in the cabin and shoot one of the Indians, which of course enraged the survivors. They tried to burn the house and quite nearly succeeded. It is said that the women managed to save themselves by, as a last-ditch effort, applying the blood-soaked shirt of her husband to douse the flames that were burning in this cabin. The Indians did not stay long because they knew that the alarm had been given and other people in the neighborhood were coming to the relief of the cooks. So they retrieved the body of this dead Indian and submerged it in the creek. Interestingly enough, the body washed about a mile downstream, where it was apparently hung on some branches or rocks at what is now Church's Grove. And though I've never seen it, I'm told that on the bluff, the beautiful bluff above Church's Grove, above the creek, there was someone constructed a statue of an Indian, and that rock is known still as Indian Rock. Is that so? Some of you who know? Mayor? Okay. There are a couple of more shots of this area here. The cook cabin no longer exists. I think one of the cabins from that era still does. And you can imagine that this area looks pretty much today as perhaps it did then. Next, please, Larry. This is, I don't know whether this is in perfect focus or not, but this came out of the file at the Heritage Commission. It is a diagram of the buildings that existed at Stedmantown. The Mount Pleasant Baptist Church was, well, let's see. This is Stedmantown Lane. This is the sharp turn in Stedmantown Lane. This is the Mount Pleasant Church. This was the site, I believe number 4 is the site of Stedmantown, most of which was located on this side of the creek. On the other side, where we just saw the slide, is the Cook Cabin Complex, part of the Innis settlement. Next, please. Let's do another. This building, unfortunately, came down about 10 or 12 years ago. This was called the Stedmantown Hotel. It was part of the village, and as you see it here, it's in the process of being deconstructed. Next, please. Uh-oh. Let's...
When was that torn down?
I don't know the precise date. It was in the...
20s, 30s, 40s?
No. Just within the last 10 or 15 years. 10 years probably, right, Bob?
Early 80s.
Early 80s.
You see it from the road?
You could see it from the road, yes. It's on the Martin farm. As you make the turn on Peaks Mill, well, you could see it sitting on a bluff above Elkhorn Creek, and it was quite a...
It's still standing?
No.
Oh, but you could...
No, you would... I think there is a graveyard still on the property, the Stedman graveyard.
All right.
Grave site. This is the Holt Giltner house. It was built in 1859 by a farmer named Henry Giltner. It was a Greek revival structure. In 1879, it was purchased by James Holt, who had the house, added on a rear section to it, added about 8 rooms to it, and as you can see, completely changed the style. This is a Gothic revival, converted it to Gothic revival with barge boards in a fleur-de-lis design. Someone has told me that the stonework here was very likely done by prisoners from the state penitentiary, which, as you know, was located in Frankfort until after the flood in 1937. The original farm, Holt's Farm, consisted of about 742 acres, and interestingly, miles and miles, literally miles, between I think 12 and 14 miles of stone fencing were constructed on that farm. Though I don't have a slide of it, those of you who know the area know that just toward town from Holt Lane is there's a small subdivision now, and a road has come through the fence. It's called Bradburn Court, and on Bradburn Court, where that road came through, there was a jog in the fence. Kind of an S shape. And the story is that 2 prisoners from the penitentiary died on that site. And there's not a reliable explanation for why they died. They may have been fighting. They may have contracted typhoid fever. They may have been shot by a guard as they were fighting. At any rate, they are said to have been buried where they fell, and the fence was built around them. And that information came to me from a person many of you know who was active in historic Frankfort years ago, Clem O'Connor. And Clem at one point wrote a driving tour of Franklin County in which that information is found.
Well, now, don't you live at this home now?
Yeah, I do. I camp out. I've been camping out there for a long while. Next slide, please. This is the summer kitchen to the Holt Giltner house, and it's not in great shape. It has a sound roof on it. It needs a new foundation, but apparently these 2 buildings were joined at one time, but when they were originally constructed, they were separate. I'd like to see them restored someday. Next. This is a wonderful smokehouse that still functions. About 10 or 12 years ago, some hams were smoked in it, and it worked pretty well. All the working parts were there. Next, please. This house, I'm sorry I don't have a better shot of. This is it's called Rose Hill. And it is about 1.25 miles from the Owenton Road on a hill just north of Peaks Mill Road. This is a house that's difficult to see because there's a rather steep embankment that is wooded, and the best time to see it is in the winter, really.
Who lives in that?
Roberts is his name. I believe it's Tommy Roberts, not the Tommy Roberts of the jewelers, but
Where did you say this was?
that is on Peaks Mill Road, just at the where the stone fence on the original Holt Ennis property ends.
Okay. But is that...
You'll see it sitting on the hill as you come toward town.
All right.
It's a 2-story house, frame construction. It has fish scale shingles in the gables, and has beautiful parquet floors in it. It is a real gem. I'm sorry this shot is not better. Next, please. This structure to the right, probably you've seen if you've driven out Peaks Mill Road. The farmhouse is not so unusual, but what's striking here is the barn, the central portion of which is a log barn. And it's one of the few log barns in the county on this side, east of the Kentucky River. Next, please. I think there's another shot of that, a little closer. Beautiful elm tree on that hill.
What farm is that?
That farm belongs to Mr. Long.
Okay, I know where it is. Joe Long.
I think that's right.
All right.
Next, please. This next house has just recently, within the last few weeks, in fact, undergone considerable improvement. This was built on the site of a log cabin, a station belonging and built by an early settler named Joe Gore. And this house became what was called the Gore Tavern. And apparently travelers on the Owenton Road or coming from Peaks Mill resorted to this place. It is a stucco structure. You notice the bay window on the front of it and that interesting tower or cupola. This stone, maybe some of you who know these things better can tell me, it looks like sandstone. And if it's sandstone, of course, it's not native to this area and was imported. It's a beautiful fence. When you drive out that way, as you take this tour, I hope you pay particular attention to it. I wanted to mention one site, again, I don't have a shot of, but it is the site of O'Hara Lane and dueling grounds. Just at the bottom of the hill, where Rose Hill is situated, was the home of Theodore O'Hara, who lived from 1820 to 1874. He was a journalist. He was a veteran of the Mexican and Civil Wars. He fought on the side of the Confederacy. He is best known, perhaps, though, as the author of The Bivouac of the Dead. And it was written for the interment of the American dead at the Battle of Buena Vista in the Mexican War. On fame's eternal camping ground, their silent tents are spread, and glory guards with solemn round the bivouac of the dead. For a time, O'Hara worked on the Frankfort Yeoman newspaper and was later editor of the Mobile Register in Alabama. Interestingly, on the 4th of July in 1819, at a celebration that was held at Cove Spring, which, as you know, is at the bottom of 127, just before you really where Home Street begins. At that celebration were two young militia officers, Francis G. Waring of Virginia, and Jacob Holman, who was a Frankfort newspaperman. They got into a fist fight after Waring killed Holman's pet dog when it followed its master onto the drill field. As a result, Waring challenged Holman to a duel, which was held July 16th on the nearby farm of Silas M. Noel, which was later the site of Theodore O'Hara's farm. On the first fire, Waring was fatally shot, and Holman was seriously wounded in the hip, crippling him for life. Holman and his second wife were indicted for Waring's murder, but acquitted at the trial. And it is said that the verdict showed the public sentiment in Kentucky at the time, which strongly favored the Code Duello. This was very, very early, 1819. The duel attracted national attention when a Baltimore newspaper printed the following account. Quote, "A pair of dunces agreed to shoot at each other a few days ago near Frankfort, Kentucky. One was a young Virginian, the challenger, the other a printer. The first was instantly killed on the spot, the other very badly wounded. Holman went on to become the state printer of Kentucky, and for many years was described as a man of good reputation and of fine ability." Next, please. This is this house has, at one time, was on one side of 127, is now on the other side with the cut that came through the highway. That farm was split. It's located at the intersection of 127 and Peaks Mill Road, two-story frame house, and sits very well on that ridge above Frankfort. The next slide, I don't have a slide of Cedar Cove Spring, but it was perhaps the most interesting place I think that John and I visited. Cedar Cove Spring is of course a natural spring, but it is the site of the first city waterworks in Kentucky. And though I had been in that area for a long while, I had not seen what essentially was the remains of a natural reservoir on that site. Now, the only existing structure still there is a stone tower, probably maybe 12, maybe 15 feet in diameter, about 20 feet tall. And it was a spillover device to control the amount of water that could gather in that reservoir. There was also a 40-foot high stone wall which contained that water. Somewhere in Frankfort, perhaps at the Historical Society, is a remnant of the original pipe by which the city of Frankfort and Leestown were served. And what was done, as I understand it, is that cedar, pieces of cedar were bored out and I suspect clamped to form a rather crude but apparently effective conduit for the water supply.
When was that being used?
Let's see if I've got some, I may have a date on that. Very early, the iron pipes, let's see, iron pipes were laid in 1839 that replaced the original pipes. I don't have the date, but I think it was 1820s, 1830s, very, very early.
You really wonder how many gallons were used a day approximately, don't you?
Yeah. That site is really quite beautiful, and I hope at some point it's open to the public or maybe open on tours so people can get a look at it. It's really a remarkable area. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The spring itself and the site of it, which really it's surrounded by wooded hills, and there are very few signs of development. This last slide is the Finsel House, which is now the Montessori School. I could not really find much information about this house. It's an early 20th century two-story stone house. It was owned by the Finsel family and is now occupied by the Montessori School of Frankfort. As I said earlier, I think the best way to experience this driving tour is actually to get in your car one of these pretty Sunday afternoons and visit these places, because it's well worth doing. Thank you very much. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Richard, would you tell people that are watching on Cable 10 how they can obtain a copy of the tour?
Not to pass the buck, but the best person to see would be Nikki Hughes. Nikki has been a reliable source for the copies we've had in the past, and I hope the Bicentennial Commission and the Historical Society will continue to make these available. If Nikki reaches a ceiling with the number he can produce, maybe Historic Frankfort could take it on as a project. It would not cost much money to do. We're talking maybe 10 or 12 two-sided pages for the text. Anybody else? I didn't mean to keep you so long. Thank you. These, I'm not sure where they are, but we've got the, somewhere here are the text. Yeah, the driving tour guides. I think maybe they're under the projector, so if you want one, be sure you get one before you leave.
We'll unearth them before you leave. I'm Larry Moore, treasurer of Historic Frankfort and sometimes projectionist. And I'd like to thank Richard again for his very interesting presentation tonight, for all the work that he's put into the driving tour, and for reminding us, first, what is still out there that we need to get out and enjoy and appreciate, and how fragile it is. And that we better appreciate it, and not only by going to see it, but by doing all that we can to see that it's preserved for future generations. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's presentation, and certainly invite you back next month for our final fall lecture. Carter Lively will be speaking on Lafayette's visit to Frankfort. So hope to see you there and see you on television. Good night.
Let's see if these are...